We're ready.
Dory, are you ready? Call the meeting to order at this time. Roll call.
Mayor Grimes,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Liggins,
Here.
Councilmember Smith,
Here.
Councilmember Wallstrom, and Councilmember Heckey.
Here.
Councilmember Wallstrom is absent. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Pastor Brooks here? Oh, you're okay. We're going to have the invocation this time, and then I'm going to ask you to stand, and then at the end of that, we'll have the pledge to the flag. I'm going to ask our city attorney, Tom Schroeder, to lead us in that. Please stand.
Let us pray together. Our Heavenly Father, we're reminded today from your word in Psalm 148. It says, hallelujah, praise the Lord from the heavens, praise him from in the heights, praise him all you his angels, give praise all you his hosts, praise him sun and moon, praise him all shining stars, praise him highest heavens, you waters above the heavens, let them all praise the Lord's name, for he commanded and they were created. Assign them their station forever, set an order that will never change. And Lord, we do praise you today. We come before you with great thanks and gratitude for the majesty and glory of your creation. Coming together today as a nation, we looked up, we gazed into your creative works and saw the glory of the work of your hands. Lord, may we never take for granted your awesome creative handiwork, and may it forever cause us to see a glimpse of who you are. Today we call upon your name, that your presence would be sensed here in the midst of the work of your elected officials. Lord, would you give these, the servants of the people of Tehachapi, the wisdom to lead, to take in all the needed input and act on behalf of the people of this great city. Lord, may it never be so that the desires and wants of the few would eclipse the needs of the many. May your will be accomplished through the difficult work of these who have chosen to serve both those who have and those who have so little. Lord, bless the families of these who serve here and all those who have taken the time this day to have their voices heard. We call upon you this day for the wisdom that comes from on high. Remind us this day, Lord, from James 3:17, that the wisdom that comes from heaven is first of all pure, then peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere. Lord, we ask these things in the mighty name of Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Ready to begin?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, our first order of business is the consent agenda. All items listed with an asterisk are considered to be routine and non-controversial by city staff. Consent items will be considered first and may be approved by one motion if no member of the council or audience wishes to comment or ask questions. At this time, is there anyone in the audience that wishes to remove anything from the consent agenda? Council? Do I have a motion?
Motion on consent?
Seconded.
I have a motion on consent and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
None opposed? Let the record show 4 ayes. Our next order of business is oral and written communications. The City Council welcomes public comments on any of the items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Council. We respectfully request that this public forum be utilized in a positive and constructive manner. Persons addressing the Council should first state their name and area of residence, the matter of city business to be discussed, and the organization or persons represented. At this time, keep in mind, please, that you have 3 minutes. Is there anybody in the audience that wishes to make a public comment?
Kim Conley, I live in 520 Polly Street in Tehachapi. I missed our last meeting, but I want to direct something at Phil Smith and Sue Wiggins. Both of you have preached in the past that if you don't use the money, you're going to lose it, some other town will get it. Am I correct with both of you preaching that?
Yes.
If you hesitate to go to the bottom of the list,
Yes.
why don't you give $300,000 away that the airport could have used to fill and to prevent maintenance? I'd like to hear from both of you why.
Sure. I'm sorry you missed the meeting, but I'm sure you were briefed. We are, as it was presented, we are saving up for a much larger project.
Isn't the maximum amount you can get is $300,000 a year, and you lose it if you don't use it?
I don't believe that's true. No, you can carry over. And we didn't use it on these 2 cycles, but we do plan on using it in a future cycle.
You haven't got it.
Pardon me?
You gave it away.
No. Could you, Chris, explain how the process works, or Greg, as far as accumulating the grant funding? And you also have to have the match at the time. And you have to be very specific about the project that you're going to use. You could use it on smaller projects as you go, but if we're trying to see a project that's down the line 2 or 3 years, we're still, even though we don't use that money this cycle and next, we're letting those folks use it. That doesn't mean we have lost the money.
How do you regain that?
Could you explain how that works, Chris?
Yeah, so the way that it works for entitlement funding, which is what this is, typically in that use it or lose it scenario on the bottom of the list, that's when you're in a more of a competitive grant situation. That's not the case with these funds. These are $150,000 annually the city is entitled to from the FAA if we have a project plan. You're allowed to carry those funds for 3 years plus the current year. Once you hit that 3 years plus the current year, if you have those funds stored up, which we do, then the last year of that cycle drops off. Rather than it drop off and go into the black hole of the federal government, they reached out to us and said, hey, we have another airport that does have a project planned this year. Would you mind sharing those funds with them? We have a simple 1-page entitlement transfer form, which the council approved at the last meeting.
I hear what you're saying, but okay, don't you have a place for that at the airport?
We do not have a project currently programmed with the FAA.
Isn't that poor planning, if I might say to somebody, if you have things that need to be done at the airport to prevent maintenance down the road, you have spider webbing at the end, you have cracks that are 4 or 5 inches thick, deep, and you don't know anything about that?
I'm aware of some of the issues you described, whether or not you could debate whether or not that's poor planning. We're aware of the pavement situation. We had a pavement management study done.
And why did you give
by
it away?
Caltrans.
Why did you give it away?
Because we
Mr.
don't
Mayor,
have
this
a
is
project
for,
programmed this year.
Your time is up, Mr.
This is for
Senator.
public comment.
I haven't
It's
got an
not
answer
for-
yet.
Right. We're not here to debate issues in public comments. So
So I got no answer from you then, is that what you're saying?
Well, my comment and your answer was, we still have funds, those funds not set aside, but they're allocated every year, even though you don't use them, you're going forward with that amount, okay?
So how much will you get next year?
We get a $150,000 allocation whether you use it or not.
Per year.
But I believe it's per year, okay? But you have to have the grant, you have to have the project approved, and the environmental is done, and not necessarily every single project that we would assume would be available for FAA funding. Not all maintenance items are funded by the
So
FAA.
you really have nothing in mind to repair the airport this time then?
I wouldn't say that, no.
You just gave money away? Jesus.
Okay, that's your opinion.
thank you. Any other public comments at this time?
Good evening. I'm Michelle Vance, the district manager for the Tehachapi Valley Recreation Park District. And I just want to thank your public works and your police department for an outstanding partnership that we have. This weekend was a big weekend for the rec department. We had a run, we had an amazing thing happen at the park, and your staff is 5-star, both of you. And we couldn't do it without you. And I just want you guys to know and thank you for allowing us to partner, because it's critical. This town can't afford everything on their own. And if we didn't work together, we wouldn't have what we have in Tehachapi, and I thank you.
Thank you.
Now,
Al Baumgarten. I'm not a resident of Tehachapi, but I call Tehachapi my adopted hometown. Today I represent the Thunder on the Mountain Committee as co-chairman. I'd like to thank the staff and all the things that did good for us. We had a wonderful, wonderful show yesterday. As I was driving down Tehachapi Boulevard, I noticed all 3 hotels were plumb full with car trailers all over the place. We ended up with 332 cars, and plus we had about 17 no-shows due to accidents, breakdowns, and this sort of thing. We raised somewhere in the neighborhood of $20,000. Since it was only 1 day away, we're still gathering our coins and trying to figure out what all we get. But again, I'd like to thank everybody who helped us. And by the way, your mayor and your police chief have excellent choices. Thank you.
Any other comments? You're walking kind of slow there, Al.
Long day.
It's a bad day at Jack Rock.
Yeah. I was walking the same way yesterday, so, but it was a good event, and you know, I really enjoyed it. Like you said, the cars were fantastic, just fantastic. I couldn't have, and of course everybody knows that I love the 55 Chevy Bel Airs, and by the way, that's the one that got the mayor's trophy.
Is it red with a white top?
It was red. It was very red. So, thank you very much. Any other comments? Seeing none, let's move on. Item number 5, the Community Development Director report.
Honorable Mayor and council members, I have a number of items that you probably have already seen tonight, so let's jump right in. The first item for you is the 2017 Seal Coast Project Award. In the way of background, in mid-2015, the City of Tehachapi was awarded a Regional Surface Transportation Program, or RSTP, grant. This is the sort of sole funding source we get from the Federal Highway Fund and from the state funds that are solely for roadway maintenance. And we get these funds on average about every 2 years. And back at that time, we had oriented those dollars towards a seal coat project, like the one we're bringing to you tonight. In July of this year, we advertised for the project and we opened bids for the project on August 1st, 2017. The bid tabulation is available there for your review. We performed a responsiveness review, as is our obligation under the Public Contract Code, and the bid provided by Sierra Nevada Construction has been deemed responsive by staff. The fiscal impact is the area for conversation. The total grant budget is of $374,000 plus or minus. That was our expected grant budget for the project, of which we had expected to contribute a minimum of just over $38,000. As such, the bids received exceed the available budget by a margin. We did, however, anticipate that to some degree, and we bid the project with multiple bid schedules. And I know I've described this for you guys in the past. That's where we bid a base project, and then we bid additional components so that we can tailor to some degree the size of the project based upon the bid results. And so the base bid for Sierra Nevada was $474,546, so getting a little closer to our available budget. Obviously, once we received the bids, staff sat down, staff consisting of Chris, myself, and Ryan, to look at the bids in detail, to look at the project, to ask ourselves questions about whether we can value engineer this project. And we felt like we could. There were a number of areas on the project where there were quantities of work to be done that were at our discretion as staff, and so we feel like we can sit down with a contractor and discuss with them the areas of most need in compliance with the Public Contract Code and proper procedures. And so the long and short of that is that, coupled with the expenses associated with management, we believe we can deliver this project for approximately $410,000. And so we have consulted with both Public Works and Finance, looking at the budgets. The city staff believes we can afford this project in our current budget. And so therefore, the procedure would be to award the project for the bid amount, and then to allow staff to go through that value engineering process. But anyway, to simplify my request then, or my recommendation, is that you would award Schedule A of the 2017 Seal Coats project to Sierra Nevada Construction, in the amount of $474,546 and authorize the city manager to approve any necessary change orders up to a maximum of 5% of the original contract, or $23,727.30. And, okay, you got it up there. Those with the roads in red are the roads that would receive the seal coat treatment as part of the reduced project that I'm asking you to award. I'm open for questions.
Okay, any questions? Any questions from the public? Council?
Mr. Mayor, I just have one comment. I think it's fantastic news that Jay has proceeded with this project. As many of us know, we literally have crumbling infrastructure. Some of our streets are in terrible condition, and anything we can do to improve this with seal coat or other means, it's welcome to, I think, probably all the council and the citizens of our community. So I would be in full support of this, and thanks for taking the effort to make that happen, Jay.
On this type of coat, if there are recessed areas in the pavement, do they have to be leveled before this, or will it fill in? Make up the difference.
Yeah, yes and no. There are 3 different types of treatment that would be applied to the roads that are shown on the map. And that's a customized decision that we as engineers sit down and try to pick the right spot best we can. So doing slurry seal in some cases, we're doing just a simple rejuvenating emulsion, which is basically an oil spray in other locations, and then a chip seal, which is both a mixture of emulsion and a rock in another location. So the answer to your question is, it's generally the emulsions are designed to deal with cracks. They're not going to fill in a dip or a pothole. If we have a pothole situation, we're going to need to fill those potholes before we come and do these seal coats. So does that answer your question?
Yes, so the ones we do have potholes or divots or whatever is in the pavement, those will be leveled and then surfaced with the...
Subject to budget would be my answer for you, but yes.
Best we can.
Yeah, we're definitely going to fill in any of the egregious spots, but because of the way the bids came in, we're going to do less probably than we had hoped to do, but still, there's without a doubt, this is an improvement to every single road, so.
Well, the roads are very, very expensive to do, and if you can do it with this kind of money, more power to us. And this is a good project. Thank you.
Any other questions from the council? Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second on the item as discussed, item number 5. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Let the motion show that it was, or the vote rather, show that it was 4-0. Thank you. Item number 6.
Thank you. Next item for you, Honorable Mayor, Council members, is the same funding source. We're in a cycle now to produce our next grant application. And so, like I said, every 2 years on average, as a member agency of the current Council of Governments, we're given an allocation of funds. The money descends from the Federal Highway Transportation funds that Congress earmarks on a periodic basis. So a recent example of that, actually I put in there as a previous project, but a better recent example is the one you just approved. So the project description, in this case, staff again met to consider our priorities in terms of best place to use this money going forward. And staff feels that continuing our funding of Tehachapi Boulevard, that we've been doing in pieces for a number of years now, would be our next best approach. We're proposing to continue the effort in terms of paving Tehachapi Boulevard between Curry and Davis Street, and our initial estimate for the work is listed there in my staff report at $370,000. This would require at $370,500 that the city match with $42,496. Therefore, my recommendation is that you adopt a resolution authorizing the filing of an application for Regional Surface Transportation Program funding and committing the necessary local match and stating the assurance to complete this project. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the audience? Council? In a good project. So. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second on the item as discussed, item number 6. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
None opposed? The record show that it's 4 ayes. Item number 7.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Council members. The next item I have for you is an information-only item titled the Congestion Mitigation Air Quality Program Parking Ride and Transit Center Project, the Union Pacific Ground Lease Introduction. So briefly on background, back in August of 2015, the city applied for a CMAQ, or Congestion Mitigation Air Quality Grant. That's a competitive grant process amongst the other agencies here in Kern County. We applied for and received approximately $1.4 million in funding to produce a park and ride facility in downtown on the north side of Tehachapi Boulevard between Mill and Poly. That's Union Pacific land, and then also to build bus turnouts and bus shelters on both sides of the road. We've been working with Kern Regional Transit about relocating their current bus stop in front of Kmart to this location. They favor this location strongly because it's easier for them from a bus routing standpoint, and it also provides a really nice functional parking lot, you know, for those kids that are commuting to DC or taking a job out in Lancaster to be able to come park there in a safe, well-lit location and then ride the bus. So it's a bit complex right now. Since we began the design environmental stages of this project in late 2016. After receiving approval to proceed on those steps, we felt as staff that the most critical next step was to begin negotiation with Union Pacific, who's sort of notoriously difficult to negotiate with, on a ground lease for that property. It's taken all of that time effectively to get to a place where we have an agreed upon ground lease, which is presented in the packet and attached to this staff report. Hopefully you've had a chance to review it. It's a complex endeavor. Anyway, the next stage for me, or for us as staff, is to finish the environmental process and to begin the engineering design process, both of which mark the point at which we begin spending grant funds. And so the reason I'm bringing this to you as an information item only is I'm also, this is the second component, is that we're not allowed to sign a ground lease, according to Caltrans, until the environmental phase is done. And so, in essence, we have to begin spending grant money before we have the ground lease in place. If we don't then execute the project after we begin spending their money, the feds will naturally want their money back. And so I thought it prudent to introduce this ground lease to you guys and answer any questions you may have about the ground lease so that we can presumably go forward, finish the environmental stage, then I would come back and ask you to enter into the ground lease formally, and the project would proceed from there. So we just got to get these couple of steps in order, and that's the purpose of my introduction to you. So the ground lease terms, I gave you some data there. The lease has been reviewed by the city attorney on a couple of occasions. It proposes 3 consecutive 5-year terms. Following the 15th year, the lease becomes automatic year to year. The city's annual payment is $17,390 that will adjust based upon the CPI on an annual basis. At each of the 5-year intervals, there's an opportunity for the Union Pacific to reevaluate the lease value. And the city's required also to provide insurance to Union Pacific and to indemnify them from liability for activities on the site. We're also obligated under this agreement to maintain a security fence along the northern edge of the property, which is part of the grant funding. So that was an easy one for us to agree to. So my recommendation again is just, this is only an information item, so it's simply providing you the opportunity to review the lease and answer your questions. And with that, I'll go ahead and entertain any questions.
Okay. Any questions from the audience?
Yeah, my name is David Benham. I live in Woodland Hills. Just a question. After the 15 years, what happens to the infrastructure we paid for if Union Pacific decides not to renew the lease?
So technically, Union Pacific at each of the 5-year intervals, or at the year-to-year, or if we fail to provide insurance, for instance, have the right to terminate the lease. The way the lease is written, we have to remove structures that are on site. In this case, the parking lot is unlikely to demand any kind of removal. They can exercise their right to take back the parking lot as their own property. We think as staff, that's in the agreement, so that's the blunt answer to you. We think it's relatively unlikely to be a major issue. We have a number of leases in downtown, and this is hopefully to reassure you to the degree that we can. Union Pacific won't. We feel like this is pretty good lease terms. They started with a 3-year lease that went year to year after that, and we told them we need a little bit more security that once we spent this money, it was going to stay for at least its useful life of 15 or 20 years. But we own a lease for the Union Pacific Depot. We own a lease currently for the parking lot that's next to the taco sandwich restaurant. We own, tell me, what's that? Railroad Park. They all have different lease terms, but this is fairly similar to the rest. I will say on the plus side, the city has been able, it can get political at that point. If the Union Pacific is being unreasonable in their actions with us, we can reach out to our local congressman to ask for their involvement. They are governed by the California Public Utilities Commission, and this lease is in compliance with that process. So hopefully that gives you both your answer and a little bit more information.
Well, I just thought of the following, so you got a guarantee for 15 years. Is that going to be the length of the depreciation value of the infrastructure?
That's a judgment call that the finance department would make in terms of depreciation. Typically, a fixed asset like this is 15 or 20 years. So I don't know the answer directly for you, but it's going to be one of those two.
Okay,
Thank you. Any other questions? George?
George Sandy, 22-year resident. I just have one question on the terms there. I don't see any period explained, so I understand that it's the 17,000 plus. Is that per year, per month, or and how many year contract are we entering into with Union Pacific?
Jay, can you answer that?
Sure, that's an annual number, the 17,390. I'm looking at what I think it's written on the second page. Yeah, it's on, second page, Article 3, Item A. The lease is an annual amount. So does that answer your question? And in terms of the term, it's 3 5-year terms, and then at the end of the 15th year, it becomes automatically year to year after that.
Okay,
So
so this wasn't explained. I guess this is just a brief of that.
Oh, yeah, well, you don't have the whole packet, it's in their packets, the actual attached agreement is included, so I'm sorry that that's not there, but yes, it is on the first page, Article 3, Item A, lessee shall pay the lessor an advance rent of $17,390 annually.
Okay, that explains it. The only other question I have is, night lighting, is that going to be subdued and directed down to the ground so we don't, and the right type of lighting so we don't increase the glare?
Absolutely, yeah, we're envisioning basic street lights similar to what's in downtown.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the audience? Council?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just have a couple of questions. One concern that I have, and I'll turn it into a statement and into a question. I read the proposal in its entirety, and I see that we're obligated to put a fence in. We've probably all noticed people crossing that particular area of the tracks, which is terribly dangerous. They're coming from the apartments and some of the residential areas on the other side, directly north of where this project is proposed. Are we confident that we can we build a fence high enough? Can we use carbon steel or other things to make it uncuttable? I mean, there is a little bit of humor in there, but there is a significant concern with that. I've seen it happen numerous times, and I don't know how we can mitigate and manage that going forward. Do you have a feel for how we can adequately do that, and are we confident that that will succeed in its efforts?
Well, probably best to answer that by reminding the council that we have a $2.2 million ATP grant that I'm also working on that will be doing security fencing all down the H Street side of the railroad tracks. So this is almost a redundant fence in that regard. As to absolutes are tough in my world. So can we build it high enough or tough enough? I don't know. Why don't you ask the guys who build the border fences in Arizona? Like, it's not, no. But will a chain link fence or on the H Street side, we envision in that location something a little nicer, probably a steel wire mesh fence or something like that. We're actually working through those details now. Do I think it's going to be a deterrent for 95% of the people who might have walked across the tracks? Yeah, I do. Will we have to do maintenance to deal with cut fence? Yes, we'll have to do maintenance to deal with cut fence. Will it detract every single person? No, but I think, if you go to any other large city that has a railroad through it, Bakersfield comes to mind. We've all been to jury duty down there probably, and they have chain link fence, and is it 100% effective? No, but it's much more effective than no fencing, and so I feel confident that this is a good approach and a good, reasonable one from in terms of the cost we put in and the benefit we receive.
Okay, super, thank you. That answers that, Jay, very well. Mr. Schroeder, in regards to, again, I read the contract. There seems to be some very onerous language in there regarding our insurance and liability requirements. Are we confident that we can meet the requirements that the railroad has stipulated when it comes to this project?
Well, if you had specific terms, I could answer specifically. Generally, yes. This is no different than any other railroad rental agreement we've had.
Okay, are those numbers, insurance levels, parallel or similar to what we're currently paying for the depot and for Railroad Park and some of the other facilities? Do we know,
Yeah.
just out of curiosity? If it's steady state, then it's a moot point, but if there's something a little more demanding because it is a public parking area or a transportation hub,
Well, I do not recall what the level of insurance is in this contract. We have $10 million with the Risk Management Authority, and then they have reinsurance over that. So I suspect we're well within the levels that the railroads have.
okay, I don't think that that's what was specified. That I believe the railroad specified a lower number than that. So,
Correct.
okay, that's all I have. Thanks.
Any other questions?
Regarding the money that we're getting for the other fencing, what's the status? Since we could talk about, because we're going to go all the way down to past Hayes or all the way to Denison. And would the railroad, in light of the fact that we are going to be placing that fence on the north side on H, they're asking for a section that's going to be just redundant on the south side of the tracks. Would they be? Do you ever can you talk to them and say, hey, look, we're going to have one on the north side, do we really have to have one on the south side?
Dealing with the Union Pacific is dealing with a profit-driven federal government. I mean, it's that's the best I mean, you get all of the, respectfully, the difficult qualities of both. We are fencing as part of that other project. The entire alignment of the railroad, effectively from the western edge of the wastewater treatment plant property all the way to 100 or so feet past Denison. At that point, the fence doesn't make a lot of sense because there's nothing on the north side that would motivate people to cross unless they just are hanging out in the field out there. So we feel like that project will be very effective when it comes to fencing. What it doesn't do is necessarily, though, is stop somebody from going to loiter on railroad property.
Okay.
It theoretically, if we maintain that fence, nobody would have good reason to cross, which is their primary problem. But if we leave the one side open in gaps, then people might go hang out back there in the railroad property, which is also of value to the railroad. They don't want anybody back there for any reason. So because we had anticipated this, it's in the grant source, we felt like leaving it well enough alone. We had to negotiate. It's taken this entire time to get to this place. So my advice would be to leave it as is. I think it's a value-added component. It's not very expensive compared to the rest of the project, and it does have some value. So we felt like it was the right thing to do. But I will say, between the two projects, I'm dealing with Omaha for this lease, and I'm dealing with that Los Angeles Ventura area for the project, plus I'm dealing with San Francisco for the CPUC. So I mean, it's just, they don't talk to each other, and so it's we pick our battles. So that would be my advice to you guys. The fence is no big deal.
All right, thank you. And what's the timeline on that, on the very long fence? Is it going to be over a mile and a half maybe, or?
Hoping to do construction next year.
On the
large, for both of these projects, actually.
Perfect. Okay, it's going to be a real good addition. Thank you.
Any other other comments from the council? Okay, seeing none, do I have a motion on this project?
Simply information.
Information only, but do we, don't we?
Nope.
We don't have to, okay. All right. Let's move along to item number 8.
Yeah, I'll make this one brief, council member and Mayor Grimes. This is the same project. We're ready to begin the design. So pursuant to the other items that we are authorized by Caltrans to do that. Briefly, back in late 2016, thinking the negotiation with Union Pacific would go faster, we began the process of hiring an engineer through a competitive process. We interviewed 3 firms, and Four Creeks Incorporated was one of them. And so staff got together. We then put that process on hold. We did that process in January or February of this last year and didn't really want to launch it till we knew the lease was going to come through or had a good chance of coming through. And so now's the time to go ahead and get started because it's going to take us 4 or 5 months to get the design done. And so anyway, we talked about the nature of the project. And so we believe that moving forward with Four Creeks, they were unanimously amongst staff the selected firm of the ones we received who we felt was most qualified and ready to tackle the complexities of this particular project. And so therefore, my recommendation is that you approve the agreement between the City of Tehachapi and Four Creeks Incorporated, which is attached to your council report. Happy to take questions.
Any questions from the audience? Council?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Four Creeks, correct me if I'm wrong, Jay, but Four Creeks, they're the same engineering company that did Pilot.
That's correct.
Will we see any similarity or synergy in what they designed at Pilot that could be applied to this project?
Due to location, there's really little crossover value other than that they may be a little more experienced with our standards. And so that's a minor value to us. But if you look at the work scope, none of the steps involved, the primary steps involved, topographic survey, negotiating with utility companies, the site-specific design, none of those things are advantaged by the fact that they're working somewhere else in town.
Okay, thanks for that. And then one request, in review of the entire agreement that they presented to us, the signature at the bottom of the page, it tops any doctor's signature. It would be beneficial, I think, if we could possibly have, who from Four Creeks that signature represents. It's a good one. It's a good squiggly line. So, yeah, that's the only request that I've got regarding that agreement. If we could pass that on to them. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thanks.
Any other questions from the council? Okay, seeing none, do I have a motion on the item as discussed?
Yes, per staff's recommendations, please.
Second.
I have a motion and a second on item number 8 as discussed. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
None opposed, motion carries. Let the record show it's 4 ayes. And item number 10.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, Councilmember. This is my last item to present tonight for you. As the council is aware, and the community should be by now, California High-Speed Rail has been here in the community working with both staff and the public regarding their upcoming rail alignment that does come through the city limits of the city of Tehachapi. They are preparing to issue their environmental impact report sometime this year is the last schedule that they've permitted or that they've given to people. And part of that has included a number of meetings with city staff about how that impacts us. As you guys may also recall, in the way of background, I think I listed the date in here, but a number of years ago we did, in preparation of this, high-speed rail issue, the council entered into an agreement with the high-speed rail for them to reimburse us for the expenses to staff and principal as we support these discussions. We provide information about utilities as we talk to them about land use planning, et cetera. And to date, we've spent very little of that money in that reimbursement agreement. But tonight, before you, we've been working with the high-speed rail relative specifically to the Capitol Hills area, the undeveloped portion of Capitol Hills, which is going to be area north of Challenger Drive, largely that large open vacant field that's used for cattle grazing, that's not the mountains. And we've been talking to them. The rail alignment does cut right through that property, and so that property is developed in the general plan, and so is seen as a developable area, and frankly, a really very attractive developable area. And so the alignment of high-speed rail does a doozy on that piece of property. So we've been working both with the high-speed rail and with the property owners to consider the impact and determine the best way forward. That area is largely unzoned currently, and in the 1980s and 90s, the specific plan was prepared by the landowner but not formally adopted. Then in 2012, as you know, we adopted the general plan, which without the high-speed rail envisioned a new version of that property. However, the high-speed rail now needs us to consider the impact of the high-speed rail to land use planning, so planning documentation for this project. And they sent us a letter asking us to do that planning work for them so that they can incorporate our recommendations into the environmental impact report. We worked with the property owner. They're in full support of this effort, and then we reached out to a consultant that we've used for this type of work, Bovis and Pritchard Consulting Group, to solicit a scope of work for the desired planning effort. And the proposed work prepares a specific plan for the site, considering both the general plan and then how the high-speed rail impacts that, and will in essence consider issues like future circulation with the high-speed rail in existence, and then future land use planning. Do we put estate homes right next to where the high-speed rail will be or not? Preview, we won't, but anyway. So that's the concept. The fiscal impact to the city general fund is zero because we have received approval from the California High-Speed Rail Authority to utilize those reimbursement funds that we're in agreement for this planning effort. And so therefore our recommendation is that you approve the agreement between the City of Tehachapi and Bovis and Pritchard Consulting Group, and the contract is attached. We'd like to get started. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the audience regarding this issue? Seeing none, council?
Thanks again, Mr. Mayor. Jay, I only have one question pertaining to the last time I heard or read anything about the high-speed rail coming through. I think there were still either 3 or 4 possible directions on how the track is proposed to come out of that area. When we have this engineering analysis done, will the company, the engineering company, provide us with basically the alternatives until this is nailed down? And I realize it's a little bit of an open-ended question, but until the high-speed rail group locks in their final plan, I think it's advisable that we have our engineering company that's going to review that, give us, whatever the final 3 or 4 options will look like. Do we have any plan for that?
Yeah, valid point. I do think that the alignment has nailed down some since the multiple alignments have been done. In fact, we received as part of our discussion with them, one of the things we told them is, guys, we got to see the footprint of this thing in more detail than a blurry line on an aerial photo. And they did provide that information to us. And so I think they've locked down the alignment. Correct me if I'm wrong. Has the authority fully adopted that alignment as their preferred alignment?
The High-Speed Rail Authority does have a preferred alignment they've outlined thus far. For all intents and purposes, I think barring any significant change, like moving the high-speed rail back to the I-5 corridor, which I think has been obviously discussed and put aside, I highly doubt they're going to go back down that road. For all intents and purposes, the alignment through Tehachapi is solidified plus or minus 50 feet in either direction. We're going to work with the high-speed rail as we go through this planning exercise and engineering exercise to make sure that we accommodate enough wiggle room. Frankly, if you think about it from a planning perspective, if their corridor is 200 feet wide, we don't want to push development right up the edge of that corridor anymore. And so there's going to be some buffer space, at least we believe and we envision as part of this process, including some buffer space, either through linear parks or those kinds of things. So there's going to be enough wiggle room. We're confident in order to work with high-speed rail, make sure that's the case.
Do we by any chance have a copy of what that final, semi-final alignment looks like? Because I don't believe, as much as I've read, that's been readily available to the public at this point.
Yeah, the High-Speed Rail Authority has some really good documentation on their website. If you go to the Bakersfield to Palmdale section, there are even 3D animations where the train's driving through Tehachapi. It's pretty much exactly where that is. So what they've shared with us are actually conceptual or preliminary engineering designs that I don't believe that are public yet. They've shared with those of us as a courtesy to give us some background on where to get started. But they certainly reflect what's online.
Okay, since we don't have an official position from the high-speed rail entity at this point, it may be advised that we request the engineering company to maybe take a couple of swipes at it, just to be on the precautionary side. That's the only recommendation that I have.
Do you mean our engineering company or theirs, just for clarification?
Well, who we're talking about with this particular line item. So Pritchard, I believe, is the company.
Yeah, they're going to absolutely review their engineering plans from the High-Speed Rail Authority as a part of this process.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, super, thanks. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Do I have a motion on item 10, as discussed?
Motion on staff's recommendation.
Second.
I have a motion and a second on item number 10 as discussed. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
None opposed, let the motion, record show that it's 4 ayes. You did pretty good, Jay.
Not too bad.
Record time. Let's see if the police chief is just as fast.
No pressure, chief.
I'll be faster, actually. We told Jay if we didn't finish by 8, we buy dinner tonight, so that's why he sped it up a little bit. So, good evening, Honorable Mayor Grimes and council members. The item I have this evening is a emergency abatement approval for 903 South Curry Street. And I've asked Officer Aaron Price to deliver the staff report, please.
Honorable Mayor and Council, this is for emergency abatement at 903 South Curry Street. Pursuant to the Tehachapi Municipal Code, emergency abatements may be conducted by the city when it is in the interest of public safety or public health. This code also requires a hearing before the City Council following the abatement in order to determine whether or not the code enforcement actions were appropriate. On June 27, 2017, subject property was inspected due to a complaint of dry brush and overgrown vegetation, causing a fire hazard and a hard bridge for road use. Notice of violation was posted on the property, with an additional copy being mailed to the property owner of record. At that time, records indicated that there was pre-foreclosure activity in progress on that property. On July 17, 2017, follow-up inspection was conducted. The dead and overgrown vegetation was still present on the property. In addition to the vegetation, trash and debris was observed in the rear yard, which could attract rodents and vermin. On July 26, 2017, an emergency abatement was executed on the property. Through the use of a private contractor, the city removed all dead and overgrown vegetation, along with the abandoned trash on the property. Staff's recommendation is that the council approve the emergency abatement actions conducted at 903 South Curry Street. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, any questions? Any questions from the audience at this time? Council?
Thanks again, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Price, could you please let us know how much the city has spent thus far in abating the situation at this particular address?
Absolutely. Not including my time, just the contractor cost, it was $1,100. But before you panic, when we do something like this, we do cloud the title. Generally speaking, I would go before council at this hearing and request approval for a lien pursuant to our municipal code. Given the fact the property is in foreclosure, I put a substandard declaration on the property, which does many of the same things. It clouds the title so it can't be sold. But since I anticipate that we will have to go back out before the property is through the process, the amount that we're going to have on that lien may well change. And I want to make sure that the city gets all the time I spend in addition to contracting costs reimbursed.
Okay, super. I just have one comment on top of that. I think what you do, Mr. Price, is a very valuable service to our community. We have properties that, have unfortunately fallen into just disarray with individuals who, in this particular case, walked away from a property and is now owned by a bank, or other situations may occur. And I thank you personally for the job that you do. I know sometimes that you're not the most popular guy on the block, but we need to do that as a community. We've got to make sure that things are kept clean and presentable. So thank you.
Thank you, that's greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
Ditto. Thank you very much for everything you do, Aaron. City cleanup is a very difficult job, and you're in a very difficult position many times to do it, but you're very much appreciated.
Thank you.
And that comes from neighborhoods too, because I tell them where to go and how to get it done, and you do it. So thank you.
And my comment is that I'm glad that we have you, because you certainly know what you're doing, and it helps us make a decision, an informed decision. And I know I dealt with you personally about some of the properties that were around where I live, and you got them to straighten up, and I appreciate that.
Thank you, I appreciate all the support from the council.
You bet. Okay, with that said, do I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second on item number 12 as discussed. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
None opposed? Let the record show that it is 4 ayes. Thanks again, Aaron.
Thank you.
City manager report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I couldn't be prouder of these people that work for you, that work for the city. Every one of them I have hired. Every employee is in this room I've hired, and they do an amazing job. Jay, your dad's in the audience tonight. He should be very proud. He's very proud. What each and every one of you do is just amazing, and I thank you for that. If you could bring up my slide, there we go. Thank you. That's a great photo of the mayor. He was pretending to be a cowboy.
Are you on a horse there?
Yeah.
Oh, you're standing up on a stool or something.
Hey.
I poke fun at that.
That's when you don't print this.
At the mayor, but it's a true reflection of who we are. This weekend, the Greater Tehachapi Chamber of Commerce, in conjunction with Car Show folks, with TMRA, with so many volunteers, and I'm going to leave somebody out. But Tehachapi shined so bright this weekend. It's truly amazing. Our police department did an amazing job keeping everybody safe. I might add that people behaved. We had 20, 30, 40, 50,000 visitors. I don't know. I think it was the most successful mountain festival that the city has ever seen. Our streets and roads were so clean and so safe. It just made me so proud of what we do, how we do it, how we work together with the Parks District, and all of these different volunteer organizations. So I just wanted to highlight that and let them know that we really appreciate each and every one of them, all of the volunteer organizations that put on these events, and they give back to this community like no tomorrow. It's quite amazing. We are very, very fortunate to live in this town at this time, right? Just turn on the news when you get home and you'll see chaos and murder and mayhem. It's horrible, right? We have something special and we're fighting to protect it. So thank you, each and every one of you. So that's all I have this evening. Thank you very much.
Okay. Council member reports. Okay. We'll start with
Mr. Mayor, I actually have nothing tonight.
Okay. I'm going to move real quick.
Hurry, Ed.
Before you change your
Before he
mind.
changes his mind.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing I see.
The only thing I want to
One last
report.
thing, though. Thanks to Public Works. They're out there this morning. You know, our visitors aren't as clean as residents, and Public Works is out there just getting it all cleaned up again. So make sure they understand that one. Thank you.
The only thing I want to report, there were so many people in town Saturday and Sunday. I've never seen it that full. The park, you almost had to walk sideways, and that would be difficult for me, because sideways I take up more room anyway, so. But it was wonderful to see. For the first time in my life, I had to wait in line to get into Don Perico's restaurant. It was so full. I had to wait 10 minutes to get in there, and I've never seen it like that before there. So, you know, I thought it was wonderful. Everybody did their fair share. You know, I met Ken at the car show, and he wanted to buy every car that was there. And, but it was good. It was good, and I really appreciate everybody's effort in making this the great little town that Tehachapi is. Thank you. And with that, we are going to go into closed session. If there's any thing that needs to be said afterwards, we'll report it.